info about who you are, and especially what you've done in the technology and AI space. Hello, Alan. Welcome.
Hey, Alan. Hello, Your Excellency. My name is William Petit. I work for Motive V. I'm managing director here. We're an applied research think tank. Right now, within the reins of technology, we are helping Governor Kelly with her Adopt 2.0 grant to increase digital literacy and digital access across Kansas City, as well as building bespoke software for organizations to help mission-aligned organizations to help them create greater levels of impact. Um, our internal ethos is that there's two ways to make an investment. One is with capital, and the other is with technology, because technology can increase the amount of capability that uh, um, that people are able to impact on the planet and the people that they're trying to reach.
Thank you, William. Hi, Alan. Would you mind giving a bit of an intro for yourself, and then we'll just kind of take off with the meeting from here.
Thank you, Jericho. And good morning, Your Excellency. Jericho's told me so much about you, Mr. Graham, and I'm honored to be here today joining you.
Well, thank you.
Now,
We're glad to have you.
I am Alan Duane. I'm the CEO and founder of Acuity Productions. We have a long history of being focused internationally, particularly on the continent of Africa. I've been involved with the United Nations, most notably back in 2019 for producing the 25th anniversary of the Rwandan genocide.
Mhm.
Since then, I've had the great pleasure of connecting with Jerica. So we go back 7 years now. And I've just been impressed with her work and kept saying, we're going to work together one day. We're going to work together one day. Well, now that day has come. I have had the great opportunity to work with a lot of celebrities, particularly from the continent. And as she may have told you, I'm representing Kabi Lam right now, who's the number one TikTok star on earth from Senegal. Also, my friend French Montana, who's originally from Morocco, but grew up in the Bronx, became a famous rapper, and now he's engaged to the Princess of Dubai, from the projects to the palace. Incredible life story. But at any rate, those two represent Morocco and Senegal. And as you may know, if you follow soccer, there was a big dispute back in December. Senegal won the game in December. 2 months later, officials saying, "We give us the trophy back." So it kind of underscores long-standing tension between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. So we're looking to do something, and Jerica has kindly offered to align with you guys, but we want that to be a forerunner of coming back to the UN. As I've done a lot of general assemblies, and I think this would be an opportunity for us to launch something together with you and move forward.
Mhm.
But that's my story, and there's a lot more. But I know we're only here for a little bit of time. We don't have a lot of time this morning. We wanted to introduce ourselves and hear a little bit more about your organization. Thank you,
Mhm.
Mr. Graham.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, both William and Alan, for joining us. I see Mark Henry has now joined us as well from Uganda. And I think we're going to have a interesting session today. The key things we're looking at, it's interesting you mentioned on the 2020, the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. You may have heard from
Mm.
Jerica that we were hoping to kick off an initiative to not only improve literacy, but also to improve engagement, because the Secretary General in 2019, as he was talking about the plans for the 75th anniversary, when he was asked about the celebrations, what was planned for the celebrations, his general comment was, "We don't really have anything to celebrate, that things are not going so well, that so many countries and people around the world are turning their backs on multilateralism and the very idea of international cooperation." And so the question is how do we reinvigorate engagement around the world? Because that's why we're failing to achieve the SDGs because too few people are engaged in doing anything about them. So our whole thing is about mass engagement of mobilizing the world's masses, not the millions, not the tens of millions, but literally the hundreds of millions. Um, if you were in around 2020, just before COVID was kicking off, we had these wristbands. Now, Dare to Be Great is the name of our club, and this is about the SDGs now. But this wristband is was conceived by young Africans from about 35 countries. The idea of having a Vision Africa 2030. That's the Africa that could be if all the SDGs were fully achieved in all parts of Africa for all people. And so we have a quote. Well, we had a quote because COVID interrupted everything, but we had a quote for 50 million of these wristbands, because that's the dimensions that we have to be thinking about if we want to have a significant difference. So uh, I'm really very excited about what Jerica told me about what you're looking to do. It's taking a one step, it's sort of one chink, if you would, in the wall of being able to really mobilize on a continual basis, not an event, but on a continual basis. And it's interesting that it's specifically Morocco and Senegal. My nephew's wife is from Senegal. And I represent the Italian Diplomatic Academy at the United Nations. And it turns out that our executive director is from Morocco and is very influential there in Morocco. And he's been honored by the Parliament of Italy and things like this since taking on that position. So I'm hoping here that we can work there to get together because the Italian Diplomatic Academy is the primary sponsor of the Future We Want Model UN series. We're the largest organizer of Model UNs around the world. And we have, for example, in New York, just before COVID, we did a Model UN. We had 2,700 representatives, delegates from 135 countries participating in that event at the UN in New York. So lots of opportunities. But at any rate, it's 10 after. I should get this show on the road. So let me formally open it and then we can continue the discussion, but it'll be more on the record then. Ding, I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. So I declare this meeting on 13 June 2026 to be open. The idea today is looking about how we have impact in the world. We're not a club that we're going to go get shovels and we're going to go fix all the problems in the world. So we've got to figure out how then do we have that impact on the world to make the world a better place for us all. And that's the big part of our challenge is to figure out how do we do that. And one of the key things we do is we believe that when we set our goals, we have to set goals based on not what we think we can do, but what's needed, regardless of whether we have any idea of how to achieve those goals or even whether they're achievable. That's secondary. What's needed is needed and end of story. So we've got to figure out a way. And it's when we strive and stretch to find ways to do what we don't know how to do, that's when we grow the most. So this is why we have to we've got to really think outside the box and big. Google had a thing called Google X, where they would go to try to solve the world's biggest problems. And it's interesting, X is the Roman numeral for 10, because many times they would go and say, okay, you see a problem, you have a goal, multiply it by 10. Because it's when you set your goals so high that you eliminate every known way to solve the problem, you're forcing yourself to think outside the box, because all the ways inside the box aren't going to achieve the goal. So this is very often our approach to looking at it. We can't shy away just because a problem's big. It doesn't make it go away. In fact, it just probably makes the consequences worse. So the other important thing to know about our club is that like all Rotary clubs, we seek to be the greatest service to our community. But in our case, our members are from around the world. So therefore, our community is the world. And when it comes to saying, okay, well, what's the greatest service? We believe the greatest service that we can be to our community is to help our community avoid severe and potentially existential consequences of the major problems facing our world. So, in a nutshell, to qualify us as those crazy people, we see the mission of our club is to solve all the world's problems, because we don't know which problem is the one that's going to come and clobber our world. So we have to protect against them all. And so this is it's very important for the people working with our club that we realize that. And we can't back off from that, because how are we going to feel if the thing we didn't address is the thing that caused the great catastrophe? So, having said that, we believe we've really come a long way. We lost a lot of momentum because of COVID, because the initiatives that we were looking at were very much about how do we mobilize people around the world to get engaged. Because as the Secretary General was saying, the number one problem was the decline in multilateralism and international cooperation. And we see that we are not achieving the SDGs. In fact, there are twice as many SDG targets that have made zero progress or are falling behind than have any chance of being achieved by 2030. So, almost all the rest are just the progress they've been making is not adequate to what's needed. So, we look to see in our club, because we don't have enough shovels to go and fix all the problems ourselves. We have to look to see, how do we influence the world to get engaged in fixing the problems? And we have to also say, how do we engage the brains of the world to come up with the solutions that can work? So we see ourselves as a combination of think tank facilitator. We want to facilitate bringing the best minds together to figure out, okay, what can we do about the problems that are out there? And on the other hand, we need to figure out, how do we influence the world? And we feel the best way to influence the world is to influence the people of influence to do the right thing, to do what's needed. So that's in a nutshell what we are about. Now, today, we want to say our club name is Dare to Be Great, and it starts off with goals. You have to have meaningful goals. When we went out and did an analysis to say, why are we not achieving the SDGs? Why are we falling short? The first thing is, we then sort of say, okay, well, let's take a look at all the projects that are aimed at solving the problems. And we went out and said, let's take a look. Where's the projects that have as their goal to move the global needle? Let's say World Bank statistics. Where's the projects that have as their goal is to move the World Bank statistics relative to the world problems? We can't find any. Okay, we can't find anybody that's got that as their goal. And when we go and look, though, we say there's millions of projects. We're a Rotary Club. Rotary does 1 million projects every 5 years around the world. So how can it be with so much effort going in and billions of dollars every year going in? How can it be that we are not making more progress against the world problems? And the thing we found is that, as I said, nobody's trying. Nobody's got that as the goal. What are they doing then? Almost all the projects that we found out there are not aimed at solving the problems. They're aimed at dealing with the consequences, helping the victims of the problems. Well, when we do that, that's great for those victims. But next year, we got a whole new batch of victims because we didn't do anything about the problem. And this is what's been going on here for the last decade, is every time we try to get any kind of discussion on the problems, people say, "Well, we got an urgent need. We got to do something about the victims," or they're just saying, "Ah, there's too much political problem with the causes. Let's stay away from controversial solutions." And so that's the first half of the problem. The second half of the problem that we found was that almost all of these millions of projects out there, and keep in mind, Rotary is just one of many. There's millions of NGOs in the world. Okay, so when we go out and look and say, okay, then we got millions of projects taking place every year. And we say, well, why aren't they achieving the results? Well, then we go back and find that almost all those projects are local or regional. And what that means is that they don't have access to the best expertise and the best solutions. They don't have access to efficient supply chains, the efficiency in achieving the results. They're not able to leverage economies of scale. Now, we've seen in the business world, economies of scale is perhaps the most influential factor that has been driving progress around the world, is economies of scale. When we go out there and say something like open defecation, okay, 600 million kids a year die from the consequences of open defecation, lack of sanitation around the world. Okay, major problem. So we go out there, Rotary's got 46,000 clubs, and we go out there and say, hey, everybody, go address these problems. And so if everybody was to say, yeah, we're going to make open defecation a problem, what are we expecting? 46,000 clubs all to get together and redundantly say, how can we solve this problem? What can we do about this problem? That makes no sense. And so the question is, or the cause of the problem is we see these millions of projects, and maybe we had 3% of communities in a given year addressing an issue. And next year it's another 3%. But we never get to any critical mass of making a difference. And the efficiency is horrendous because they're each having to go and handle their own procurement and handle all the issues. They don't have the necessary training, so we're just not making any progress on that. So these are our two major areas that we're looking to see how do we make a difference. Now, when we a couple of well earlier, well, it's now last about a year ago, where we were really talking, as I mentioned back before COVID, we were already recognizing that engagement was a major problem, but we really elevated that to say that's the number one problem in the world right now is engagement. If we could get the masses to become engaged in dealing with the problems, we'd make progress so unbelievably fast. We have several people here on the call from developing countries in Africa and Asia. And we just have to imagine any particular country. Mark Henry, you're from Uganda. Just imagine here if every single child in Uganda uh, was to commit themselves to getting a world-class education. They were to become strivers. They would chase. How do I do that? I don't care. I don't have a school. I don't have a teacher. It don't make any difference. I'm going to go and do it anyway. Okay, if every single young person in Uganda took that attitude, where would Uganda be in just 10 years? So the thing here is to figure out how we mobilize. So engagement is number one. Number two, the number two problem that we see is artificial intelligence. The problem right now is we see artificial intelligence as being, it is the most dangerous thing right now on the planet because of the shortness of time in which things are going to happen major wise. But before I go into that, Mark Henry, please.
Yes, thanks, Bill. You did give a very apt example of getting all the kids in Uganda to, for instance, become strivers, and something came to me. I thought, yeah, uh, in that there is also the role of getting them to appreciate the purpose of what they are doing,
Yes.
because when people get a sense of purpose, I'm coming from a hospital, looking at somebody who days ago they thought he was going to die, and he's going to be discharged today, and
Mhm.
that was really about his kids were at school, and he's like he's not going to die, So that sense of purpose, and the doctors don't know what has changed. They're trying to figure out, well, what is it? The tests are all negative or whatever. But I think as we are framing it as well, in our engagement strategy, we also need to realize that we are coming from a level of cognizance. We really get the issues, but one of our biggest challenges as we try to do the culture change is to really see how can we give these people a sense of purpose, to understand that my purpose is to become a striver.
Yeah.
And then once that purpose is achieved in the striving, then we'll sort out all the rest.
Yeah. And if, for example, here, if we take a country like Uganda, when we talk about purpose, there's really long-term meaningful purpose, but you can have generated purpose, if you would. So let's say here, the purpose of a country in Africa that is currently maybe not participating in the international comparison of education outcomes. Which is the case for most African countries. But let's say they decided, yes, we're going to participate. And you know what? We're setting a national goal. We are going to make our country be rated within 4 years, let's say, we are going to be among the top 10 countries in the world in education. So if we could get that to become a national goal, a national priority, so everybody, the parents are in the streets, go kids, go kids, go kids, we can do it. And the kids are all out there going and saying here, we need to master this. We need to master that. We are going to go and ace these exams to demonstrate to the world that we are one of the tops in the world. And if the young people would dedicate themselves to that. In Korea, one of the things that's very interesting, they've passed a law that kids are not allowed to have study groups that go beyond midnight. And police go around there breaking up the kids because the kids won't stop studying. Korea has gone from being one of the worst countries in the world in education. They are now number one in the world in the percentage of their population that has university degrees. And so it's just a matter here of getting people mobilized. And the first step to them is getting them to believe they can. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computer, one of his famous quotes was, "Those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." Well, we asked a bunch of young people, why do you think he said that? Where did that come from? And after they tried a whole bunch of things, they came to a consensus. Well, only the ones who believe try, and only those who try can succeed. So the key thing here is you need to get people to believe, yes, we can. And then you just have to point them in a direction and give them a goal. And so we believe this is truly possible. And if we can get people of influence in the entertainment world, in the sports world, the figures that young people look up to, enough of them to be saying, "Hey, yes, you can do it. You can do it. Go for it. Go for it." We believe we can radically change things around. And when we look here, it's not just here looking at developing countries like Pakistan and Africa, but when we can look as well at here in the States. The United States, we saw the report card, the nation's report card, the last one that came out at the end of 24. Uh, 4 out of every 10, 40% of our fourth graders in the United States are basically functionally illiterate. They can't read. And this is the first time we've ever passed that mark. It's been climbing steadily, but this is the first time. And it goes back in 2001. There was a major concern about the state of education in the U.S. And a study by the National Association of Secondary School Principals that linked it to poverty. And what they showed here that as the percentage of students in a school that qualified for a free or subsidized lunch went up, the test scores went down. And we did a study in New Jersey here about 10 years ago. And we saw that in the top 10% of primary schools, elementary schools, it was over 90% of the kids were at grade level. When we looked at the bottom 10% of schools, it was only around 6%, I think was the median or the average of kids at grade level. Imagine, how can you be going to a school where only 6% of the kids are at grade level? That's like ridiculous. And when you think that's the median, there's a lot of schools that have only 2 to 3% of students at grade level. Uh, there are in New Jersey alone, 73,000 children attend those schools in that bottom 10%. If it was a disease, it would be a national emergency. But when we look and say, okay, well, where's the plan? If it's the gap's that big, where's the plan to fix it? We can't find a plan. Can't find anybody that's got a plan to say, this is how we're going to close that gap. Okay. Now, what's really bad about it is when you look at those schools that are in that bottom 10%, they've been in the bottom 10% every year for at least we went back 10 years, but I'm sure it's further back than that. So, and because our schools are neighborhood schools, means if you're born into those communities, you're screwed. You don't have any chance. A district attorney from Southern California went and did an analysis, and he discovered that in school systems with a certain percentage of dropouts, that a certain percentage of those kids are statistically damned to spend a year in prison before they're 30 years old. When we went and compared that to looking at the structure in the school districts, and there's 19 school districts just in New Jersey that are in that bad situation. And it's not even counting cities like Newark and whatnot. As bad as they are, they're not in the bottom where we are. But in the bottom, we have some schools where 1 out of every 3 boys entering first grade 1 out of 3 boys entering first grade are statistically damned to spend a year in prison before they're 30 years old. How can we allow that? How can we watch year after year after year this situation in these schools? And I'm wondering, is anybody asking a principal, I'm going to hire a new principal. Is anybody saying, what's your plan for remedying this situation? Or are people just saying, nothing you can do about it? Kids in those neighborhoods, they don't have the brains. They're smart. They're not smart enough. Well, actually here it turns out that there's some truth to that. The kids in these poor neighborhoods don't have the brains. Now, the thing is, the reason they don't have the brains is because in their first early years of life, they were not afforded the engagement and attention to help their brains develop. They didn't get nobody was telling them stories. Nobody was talking to them. Nobody was explaining to them. So that we see there was a study by the Bloomberg Foundation called Providence Talks that showed that kids in the lowest socioeconomic background, that's working in welfare class families, they hear up to 30 million fewer words by the time they're 3 years old, and just 3 years of life. So when these kids go and they start school, kindergarten, they're 2 to 4 years behind kids from the upper class families in terms of mental maturity. That's just body mechanism, being able to control themselves. Verbal vocabulary, huge gap. And then we go and try to teach people phonetically. They don't need to know how to translate the letters into sounds. They don't know what the words mean anyway because they never heard them. And in general knowledge, they just never were exposed. So we see two things here that we are looking at. We're looking to find some pilot areas where we can demonstrate we can take schools that have never, in the last 10 years, never managed to get 10% of their students at grade level, and in 1 year, propel the results to over 70% of kids at grade level in 1 year. Because we need audacious goals because nobody's going to pay any attention. Oh, you got a 5% improvement. Nobody pays attention to that. It gets a one-liner in the newspaper, maybe, and that's it. But it didn't change anything. Next year, it's right back. Everything's back the way it was. So, but if we can demonstrate here that we can take 10 schools, for example, and achieve that kind of result, then we have another thing. You may have heard of the X Prizes, Peter Diamandis with the X Prizes, where they offer tens of millions of dollars for people to come up with really outstanding solutions to issues. We are hoping to be able to create a prize for the first company that will make available what we call an AI nanny. We don't like that name, but a supplemental parent, maybe that an AI supplemental parent that will spend all day just talking to the kids, telling them stories, and oh, what do you think's going to happen next in the story? Or, hey, why don't we make up our own story? Or, if the kid points to something and says, "Oh yeah, that's a dog or that's a ball or whatever," serve and return, and that the kid's hearing all of this. Our studies so far show that we believe we can close 85% to the top, not to the average kid coming into kindergarten, but to those kids who have had the most preparation for school, who are actually at a first grade level, let's say, in terms of mental maturity and verbal vocabulary. We think we can take every child to that level. And so between mastery-based education, when you're in education, and going and having that preparation prior to starting education, it would revolutionize, at least in the US, it would totally close that gap. Now, there are some folks in, let's say, middle upper class who say, no, school's purpose is to rank kids so we know which kids are worthy to invest in and which not. But if our assumption is our goal is to give everybody a shot, a chance at being successful and achieving something in life, there we have to give everybody that opportunity to have the knowledge. And we believe that this can do these types of things. But this gives you the examples of the way when we talk about Dare to Be Great, that we look to see how we can change the game, how we can close the gap for all students. Because that X Prize, by the way, the other thing is that they can make that available for less than $15 a month to be able to have that AI supplemental parent, if you would. And then the schools to just simply go mastery based so that the students are all learning to become independent learners. 2.5 years ago, that or almost 3 years ago now, at the General Assembly at the United Nations, they had a World Summit on Education Transformation. And one of the things that was brought out there is that the whole concept of education of saying, oh, you have to learn physics formulas or math equations and you have to learn stuff. That is becoming secondary. Everybody has to be prepared to become a lifelong learner. And to be a successful lifelong learner, and that's because when you're 30 years old, there's no teacher looking over your shoulder saying, now do this. The prerequisite to becoming a successful lifelong learner is you have to first be a successful independent learner. You have to have the skills to learn anything at any time, but you have to have the confidence as well that you can learn anything at any time. Because there's two things people need to become active, to become engaged. The first is they have to believe the goal is worthwhile. If they don't think the goal is worthwhile, why would they bother doing anything? The second thing is they have to believe it is attainable. They have to see a path that they believe can achieve the result, can achieve the goal. And that becomes our mission. So anyway, I've talked a whole lot about things here, and those of you who attend our calls on a weekly basis have all heard that too many times. But we want to start talking about actually kicking some stuff off. And we have a couple of projects. We've got the idea. How could we mobilize? Uh, our goal is 500 million kids. Is it possible? Could we come up with a way to mobilize 500 million kids to over an extended period? Could we create the biggest single endeavor, organized human endeavor in the history of mankind? Could we do that? We think we can. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite Jerica, who has been with us since the very beginning and is really such a great thinker in being able to think big and imagine here the things that we can do. So, Jerica, would you like to take over, talk a little bit about some of the things that we've talked about being able to do, especially things like the Vision Africa 2030, the Africa that could be if all the SDGs were fully achieved in all parts of Africa for all people, and then maybe talking about the idea of the Read for a Better World, readathon, and some of the things like that. But I see Alan's got his hand up first, so let me just hear from Alan, and then Jerica, if you would take over after that, please.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, Bill, I am just thrilled and fascinated with your presentation, and I'm so aligned with what you've said so far. We meet with Jerica regularly, and she's already told us a lot of what she's doing. I did tell her we wouldn't be able to stay for the whole 2 hours,
Mhm.
but we've got a lot of following up to do. I just want to comment on a few things you said. From the beginning, you introduced yourself, you mentioned Italy, and as you know, the Senegalese TikTok star is actually Italian. He's Senegalese Italian,
Mhm.
and he got famous in his hometown of Milan. But he's Senegalese, but he came to Italy as a child. So that's another interesting connection we have here. As far as my most of my work is with Africa, as I said at the top of the call, but domestically, criminal justice reform is a passion of mine here, and I've come to a little bit of claim to fame working also with famous rap stars to address the issue of criminal justice reform, and diverting kids at an early age into education is probably the best way to keep them off that prison pipeline. The last thing I was going to say, we're going to need to have a follow up specifically about our collaboration and what we're going to do together with you guys. And also, Um, Coincidentally, my one of my friends is a politician in Washington who was the Pakistani American, and he is very connected to the leadership and business leadership in Pakistan as well as government. So that's a separate conversation. I know I'm going to focus on Africa this summer as we move into the fall, but if we can, if there's a ways that I can help with that as well. So and also lastly, I want to say William, I know, has done a lot of work with education. He can speak for himself. I'm going to be hopping off shortly. I don't know what
Mhm.
his schedule is, but I'd like to just have him say a few words about education, and then Jerica can uh, please go ahead.
Yeah, just William, before you begin on that, just to mention on the Pakistan connection, typically here because I'm a little under the weather right now, I've not been as active, but I typically participate in 3 conferences a week in Pakistan.
Wow,
Remote here. And one of our big partners, supporters there, is establishing these CIT education centers literally across the entire country of Pakistan. And he's a former deputy director of a ministry in Pakistan. Also, Jericho will probably talk a little bit about this Read for the Better World readathon, where we hope to get these 500 million students around the world reading 40 minutes a day for a month. Uh, Pakistan was the first country where we actually talked to
wow,
the Ministry of Education about what level of participation they would expect. And he said it was close to 100 million, I think. And he said, because it's going to be simple, I'm just going to mandate participation for the country. And we're thinking here, the Secretary General announced 3 years ago that he had a goal to build a fund of $2 billion to support international operation. We're thinking here with this readathon that we're looking at and the support of Rotary clubs around the world, our 46,000 clubs that we've got around the world, and our partnership with Lions that has roughly another 50,000 clubs around the world, that we believe we can raise between $2 and $5 billion in a couple of months. And that is because if we have 500 million kids reading 40 minutes a day for a month, that's 20 hours. Together, that's 10 billion hours. If we manage to get pledges that our Rotary clubs and the Lions clubs in the communities all around the world to demonstrate their resolve to support their kids, to incentivize their kids, if we could get pledges of just 30, 40 cents per hour read, then uh, um, that would give us $3 to $4 billion raised in a little over a month. And our goal, real goal, people say, what a great way to raise money, because the idea is that money would be pledged to reducing the number of children in the world who are not in school due to poverty or hunger, which we believe we can reduce that by more than 10 million kids in that first year. That this is why this would be the biggest organized human endeavor in the history of mankind. Nobody's ever mobilized hundreds of millions of people for weeks. And this is the whole bunch of stuff behind it. But some people are saying, what a great way to promote reading. Some people are saying, what a great way to raise money. But our real goal is neither of those. Our real goal takes place the month following this initiative, where we will have our Rotary and Lions clubs around the world and other associated groups organizing honor ceremonies in every community around the world to honor all the students who participated in the readathon as global citizen heroes, because the hours they read led to the raising of the funds that so dramatically changed the lives of millions of the world's poorest children. And we want to do that in such a way that would make those young people and their entire families so proud that they're going to be clamoring. What can we do next? Oh, that was so great. What can we do next? And this is our concept, or example of how we believe that we can do engagement, because one of the next things is to invite every middle school in the world to participate in a competition to have their students create a 5-minute script, skit, describing the future they want. What does the future they want look like? Where is their community relative to these SDGs? So they're going to find out what the SDGs are, and they're going to go and say, oh, we would like to see our world look like this and our world look like that. And maybe their teacher is showing them pictures of what other places in the world look like. And so that's getting them to start imagining the world they could have. And then we follow that up maybe with uh, a um, a competition, a music competition, to go and support music teachers around the world that are looking for ways to get their kids more engaged. To say, hey, have your students. We're having a competition. Who can write the best future we want fight song? What group of kids or professionals, doesn't make any difference, can come up with that? And we compete, 8 schools at a time compete, and then the winners of those compete at eight parties, and we work our way up that we've got literally tens or hundreds of thousands of schools all competing to create the best fight song. And we try to get then the Grammys or the Eurovision Song Contest to say, you know what, the top prize is we're going to go and present the winning song, the winning Future We Want fight song. But if we involve the competition, that it's not only judges, but we invite the general public through the internet to vote in all these intermediate elections or competitions, because we're talking about tens of thousands of competitions at local levels that Rotary clubs or Lions clubs will organize online. And we're exposing the general public are hearing all these ideas about the future that could be. And so we're not only having all these kids excited about creating songs and music, but we can get the general public becoming more and more aware of ideas and opportunities and what could be done. And then we can go on and do the same thing with posters and art. What kids can create the best poster that we can then distribute so that every child in the world, over where they're sleeping, we encourage them to post above their head. So this poster, so the first thing they see in the morning and the last thing they see in the night is an opportunity for the future they could have. And then we can start talking about the Interact clubs and Leo clubs and Key clubs, all these kinds of student clubs that we can create competitions of who can implement some idea to advance one of these different things. You may have heard from Design for Change, which out of Ahmedabad, India, that is now, I think it has about 40,000 schools participate, where the young kids come up with audacious, crazy ideas of how to better their world and then do it. And as examples, there's middle schools where the middle school kids have said the roads in our city are in terrible shape. And the kids went out and fixed the roads in their city. What kids come up with the idea that they can fix the roads? These kids did. So this is the idea here, is that we keep building on this thing here until we've got these kids are beginning to, when they start to think, what crazy thing can we do? All of a sudden here they start realizing we can have ideas like that. We
And
can really
Bill,
think that.
excuse my interruption,
Yeah.
but would you be able to maybe briefly elaborate before William comes on? Could you briefly elaborate on what we did for the Dare to Be Great competition at Middlesex?
Okay, yeah. We did a competition. This was aimed at Interact clubs, which is high school level in New Jersey. We did a pilot. What we did is we challenged these young people to see which school or which club could come up with the most outrageously audacious solution idea to a major world problem. And so we brought in then a bunch of schools from around the state to Middlesex County College for a physical competition. This was in 2019, beginning early 2019, before COVID. And they presented their ideas. So they had 5 minutes to present their ideas. And then we had a panel of judges, including for the um, I forget that there's the global youth group there that's now anyway, they merged with somebody else. But so we had some impressive judges who asked them follow-on questions, and then they voted for which ideas they thought were the best ideas. Well, the World Summit of Nobel Peace Prize winners, that the Association of Nobel Peace Prize winners, uh, saw that and heard the quality, the ideas that these young people presented were mind-boggling. So they actually invited the winning team of 16-year-olds to go to their World Summit of the Nobel Peace Prize winners, which in that year was held in Mexico, to host a workshop to present how the world could be mobilized. Now you have to imagine there was 35 Nobel Peace Prize winners in attendance. To the that's pretty heady stuff for some 16-year-olds to be presenting and having thousands of heads of major NGOs present. And I think here we're looking at doing that again. We're seeing, can we go and offer $1 million in prizes? So the feeling is, if we were to offer to secondary schools literally around the world saying, hey, get together, come up with the craziest, outrageous idea, but your idea has to include how you do it, not just what to be done, but how you would do it. And come up with a brief presentation on it. And then we're going to have the competition. 8 schools will come together. They will each get some few minutes to present their idea, a few minutes to Q&A on their idea, and it will be broadcast on the internet at the time. And then the general public will be invited to vote, the local public, as well as the judges. And the best team, the winning team, goes on to the next level. And we think we can provide $1 million relatively easily simply by having a registration fee to participate, to compete, of, let's say, $50 or something like that. That we would encourage local Rotary clubs to sponsor teams from their community by paying the registration fees. And the idea is that 50% of the money for each level would go to the second and third place teams, and the rest of the other half would be the registration fee for the winning team to go to the next level. So that means each level, as you go up, the amount of money that's in the pool at that level goes up, and then having the winning team. And then you have the winning team at each nation being honored, let's say, by their parliament or their president or whatever. So you can have a whole bunch of different things. You can have the uh, businesses. So you can have here a major company offering the X prize for the best team in their region, let's say. There's so many different things that we can add on. But the idea is eventually maybe get it to be a TV show like America's Got Talent, is that youth have ideas or whatever. And then to be able to take it here, and I don't like using this example, but let's say here, so we end up with all these great ideas. And our whole concept is not find the best idea. That's not what it's about. Our whole initiative is about maximizing participation, maximizing the number of people that are stretching their brains to find great ideas, and then go and have another competition that would be like, what was what was the show Trump was on, The Apprentice, okay, where he had a whole bunch of people that had to try to accomplish something. And the idea here then is that we take these teams from these communities, and any team can take any one of the top X number of ideas and who can implement it the best. Right. And so, and we do the same kind of rating. They have to be recording how they're going through the process of achieving the goal and implementing whatever it was. And so that we get literally hundreds of thousands of teams all working to implement some audacious goals. So there's a lot of things like that. So yes, Jerick, I know I'm talking way too much and we want to hear from William. So
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to give William a chance to speak. I know that Alan and William are a little short on time this
yes.
morning, but it would be wonderful to get William's comments on the floor. I Great data and analytics as far as what you asked me to express about the readathon. So I would like to kind of pass the floor to William and then open for commentary on what we've discussed so far.
Yes, William, go ahead.
Number one, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. And Jerica, thank you for giving me time on the floor. I truly, number one, there's just so much mission alignment here. When speaking about reading, it's actually really close to my heart because my father. I'm the descendant of sharecroppers from Alabama, and his father spent their life savings on a group of encyclopedias, which my grandmother was very upset about at the time. But it had a very powerful effect on our family in that all my dad's brothers and sisters, growing up in poverty in St. Louis during Jim Crow, all have master's or doctorate degrees. And years later, I came across the study by Roland Fryer where he tried to find where do white and black test scores, the gap between them vanish. And the stat is if there's 100 books in the house. And they found it wasn't that the 100 books represented that the kids read all the books. It was that there was an importance of education in that household. And so when you talk about the tens of millions of words that a kid gets exposed to, that's incredibly powerful. We're also, as well as doing the Adopt 2.0 grant, where we're also targeting elderly communities, giving them access to telehealth, which is a huge part of it. We're also creating job readiness courses for young entrepreneurs in underprivileged neighborhoods or disadvantaged neighborhoods, because a lot of times a certain piece of software can be the gateway to a higher earning potential, can take an executive assistant into a sales, a development rep, et cetera, and all these other different ladders through technology. We're also doing work with Chicago Public Schools, their robotics team and robotics department, building out a technology hub for asynchronous learning. One of the big problems with reading is that if you don't have the one-on-one time in early childhood where you're taught how to read, you do not have the time to do the pattern recognition quickly enough. And when you're in a classroom filled with 25 other kids and you're trying to socially manage in all these other ways, if you don't instantly get it, you start holding yourself back. And one of the things that they found was also in disadvantaged kids' households is that the gaps in kindergarten were not that great. But what ended up happening is in the summer between kindergarten and first grade, there is a huge jump that happens
Yeah.
because one of the kids is focused on continued learning and no loss learning. And so when they're getting exposed to material, it's something that they've already seen and or maybe even mastered. Where this new kid, although they might have perceived themselves as being intelligent, get there and they just simply don't know what to do. And so they begin to characterize themselves in parts where they're being asked in front of the rest of class to do something and do it wrong as they begin to assign themselves the self role of being dumb. So when you talk about artificial intelligence, of which we build bespoke artificial intelligence for organizations and campaigns for asynchronous command structure from either the candidate or other people within there, where they basically download their entire thoughts, their campaign, their messaging, so that people can get answers for questions even whenever they might not be available. And you take that to a child whose curiosity can constantly be met with something that they can prompt and have interactions with in order to make up for that time where their parents are home is incredibly, incredibly important. And also, the other thing is, speaking of Nobel Prize winners, is we actually based our applied research think tank on the 2019 Nobel Prize in Economics and the 2017 Nobel Prize in Economics. Richard Thaler for the 2017 about using behavioral economics for creating policy decisions that what people will actually do, which made me think of the reading solutions and proper incentivization. But also Esther Duflo in the 2019 Nobel Prize in Economics about solving the last mile problem through localized solutions. And so when you were talking about partnering with schools on a localized level to have different specific ways of reaching kids, they found that that is the way to alleviate global poverty is from having a top-down goal, but having it be integrated locally so that the last mile, which usually is the most expensive mile, becomes the cheapest mile because you're interacting with the culture as it actually stands. And so there is just so much here that was just greatly inspiring as Alan said before, we both have a deep interest in investment in the continent of Africa. And the quote that's on the bottom of my signature is, "What we can be, we must be." It's a quote by Abraham Maslow. And so in that, education is the portal to that. And I think when we're giving these children the opportunity to speak, everyone's focused on the intelligence of the AI model, but it's really going to be on the pre-existing knowledge of the user interacting with AI that's going to get the best possible outcomes, because you need to be in a place where you can tell AI, actually you're incorrect about this, because you have pre-existing knowledge, so that can actually be helpful and doesn't lead you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerica. Appreciate everybody.
Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.
thank you so much, William. And I know you guys are short on time, but if we could have Alia, would you be able to provide a few comments coming from our AI forum that you're a part of with Rotary?
Well,
And
from my point of view, since I've been attending these meetings, I've realized that the impact of AI, especially on the developing world, is potentially really revolutionary. But from what I can see, there seems to be people purposely holding back from from people like us implementing AI solutions in the developing world and in poorer communities in the developed world. And I think that's basically because people fear losing their status because knowledge gives you power and status. It's a very simple equation. So it doesn't really matter which socioeconomic layer of society you come from. Generally speaking, if you can attain a certain level of knowledge, that will propel you as high and as far as you want to go. And AI is the ultimate equalizer. It doesn't matter which family you're born into, which country you live in, which part of the country you live in, whether or not you're surrounded by emotionally intelligent family or friends or people who lack emotional intelligence. None of that matters with AI. It's the ultimate equalizer. That's what I've come to realize through attending these meetings. And the key thing is definitely to get the whole world participating in engaging with dealing with the world's problems. The political class like to tell us that one person does not matter, or that the majority of people without political power do not matter, but that's not true. Collective action has always worked throughout history. They would be my comments, Jerica.
Oh yeah, I'd like to
thank
just push
you,
back
yeah.
on one point there, and that is we have to be very careful. AI is extremely powerful. It is going to shake our world up like we can't even imagine, and probably within the next 1 to 2 years already we're going to see that. But when we start talking about equaling out things. I don't believe that's true among the humans. As William pointed out, it was the fact that a family that had 100 books, it wasn't that you read the books, it was that it showed that there was an interest or commitment to education. And for so many things, you can have the best AI there to help you learn something. But if you don't, if you, it's like having the book. If you don't open the book, it's not helping you. So if you don't go and engage with the AI, you're not getting anywhere. So it's really the mindset. I believe it's the mindset of the person. That is going to make the difference. Is it a mindset of a person that says, "I can do this, and I can leverage whatever's available to me"? Yes, they're going to be able to leverage AI to do better research, to come to better conclusions, to communicate better, and so many different things. But it's the AI didn't cause it; it enabled it. If anything, the AI is going to cause more and more people to say, "I don't need to do anything," and that's a risk that we've got to figure out how we are going to deal with. But uh, so many things. It's like the with regards to the education results beyond the brain development in the early childhood, it's is the child a striver? Is the child wanting to learn? That's the key thing we've got to turn on. If once we turn that on, then we can focus on making tools available to them to be able to use to be able to move forward faster.
Well, I was thinking in terms of, really poor village people in Pakistan.
Mhm.
Everyone has phones, everyone's on TikTok, everyone has YouTube. And they basically educate themselves on global history, literature. There's so much on YouTube. There's a lot of bad stuff, but there's a lot of good stuff. And people are using it, using social media in innovative ways to earn a living.
Yep.
And all these technologies, they will affect different countries in different ways because every country, every continent is at a different stage in development. So, there won't be an equal effect of AI. So for example, in Pakistan, um, I don't think AI will have that much of an effect because they just don't have the infrastructure. The majority of the population is rural. They're not going to have AI enabled agriculture anytime soon.
Mhm.
The AI revolution is going to pass 70% of Pakistan's rural population by.
Initially, I think maybe yes, but if we look at China, the key to China's great success that they're having with AI and so forth actually goes back to a very different thing. It goes back to the idea that the government said, hey, we have to service our population. We have a lot of population living in these remote areas where we can't provide them with the level of healthcare, of level of education, the level of infrastructure that would be equal to what we can provide people living in more urban areas. So what their solution was to say, hey guys, you guys living out in those rural areas there, you're suffering because we can't provide you these services. So you know what? We're going to help you move into urban areas. So they've relocated most of their population into not necessarily big cities, but into areas where they can be able to provide the infrastructure and the education and the healthcare and the jobs. Because the other problem is if we go out there to a rural community and say, guess what? We're going to educate you. Come on, we're going to teach you calculus and we're going to teach you quantum physics. And people are going to say, well, what would I use that knowledge for in my rural area here? There's no demand for anything like that. And I have this woman that I met who's the head of oncology at one of the major teacher colleges in New Jersey from rural India. And she had, I think, five or six brothers and sisters. And her mother, or actually her father, had only completed fourth grade in school, but became a businessman and was running a pretty big business in that small community, rural community. Her mother only made it to third grade, and that was because her grandfather was blind, but he was one of these judges that goes from town to town to town to adjudicate cases. And so this woman, when she was a child, was tasked to guide her grandfather from town to town. And so she would listen all day long to all these cases and the justification and the reasoning, and she got her education that way. So as she grew up and got married and had kids, she was determined her kids were going to get an education. But her husband said, no, I'm not allowing my children to get an education because if they get educated, they're all going to leave our community and go to the cities. So he forbid his wife from having the children go to education. But he was a very hard worker and he was at work all day. And when he was at work, his wife snuck the kids to school. And so they got an education. He didn't find out until the oldest boy um, um, completed the local school and was qualified to go to the next higher level school in the next town over. And he forced his wife to take all the kids out of school. In rural India at that time, which would have been about 50 years ago, it was unthinkable. But his wife actually left him, took the kids and left him, said, no, my kids are getting an education. When he realized how serious she was, he begged her to come back and said, okay, the kids can go to school. The kids all completed school. All six of those kids are engineers, doctors, lawyers, very successful. None of them live anywhere near that community. There are several of them in Europe, several in North America, but it shows the fear. William, I think you're in Kentucky, if I'm understanding correct or not.
Uh, I'm in New York City,
Oh, okay, you're in New
but
York
we
City.
do work Kansas.
Kansas. Okay. So at any rate, though, West Virginia, there was an interesting comment made by the former Commissioner of Education of West Virginia that said one of the biggest problems that she had been facing was the number of parents in West Virginia that don't want their kids to get an education because the economic opportunities for the highly educated are not that great in West Virginia. So those who got a higher education left the state, and the parents felt they were losing their children if the children got an education. So, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but it really gets down to culture and mindset more than I think the technology. The technology is now enabling us to do stuff that we weren't able to do. And we've just this week, we started on a project working with the civil society at the United Nations to organize civil society with AI so that it can support committee work, that we can do a better job of understanding areas of focus, the problems, the opportunities, uh, the how do we get the consensus, how do we bring all the parties together, and how do we coordinate world efforts so that we can actually have achievements and not just a lot of work with nothing to show for it. So
I
we're
think
doing
that
that.
the mindset of people in positions of power needs to change
Yes,
because
that too.
they don't believe that all children have the right to an education.
Yes, you're correct. And there was actually a study done in New Jersey showing that the upper middle class actually were not interested in the lower class cities. And there's some racial tones in there as well, getting an education because they felt if the children from Camden and Trenton got a better education, they would compete with their children. So they
Yeah.
sort of saw the education system as being more a way of reinforcing the existing um, segregation, if you would, based on your where you came from.
I mean,
So
I saw something in the paper, 1 in 4 families in Islamabad, educated, well-off people, employ child labor. And a lot of those people in Islamabad have degrees from Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, go back home and they employ slave labor.
yeah. But it's interesting too, when you talk to some of those people, some of them people say, Oh, I'm doing that to help them out because then they have an income so that I'm helping them survive. You know,
Yeah.
once had a neighbor who had the fortunate to have discovered something and become a somebody that was earning millions every year just from this thing they came up with. And they resulted and they moved down to Florida into a wealthy, exclusive neighborhood and so forth. And they were complaining about all the immigrants and yet they were hiring undocumented laborers at, like you say, for because they said, "Wow, I can get them for $3 an hour." So you're right. The human nature part, but this is something else that we've got to intervene with. If we don't get the UN, for example, and others to start coming up with a contingency plan about what we're going to do when AI starts replacing human jobs en masse we need to figure out a peaceful transition to a post-labor society before it happens. Otherwise, there's a catastrophe brewing out there. But this is our opportunity. People are starting to wake up. We're starting to see some senators in the U.S., some ministers in the U.K. We're seeing the UN has created 3 committees in the last year addressing these different aspects of technology that pose great danger if we don't prepare because it's just moving so fast. We don't have the time anymore to be able to say, "Oh, we'll react when it gets bad enough, then we'll do something," because we're not going to have time to be able to react before the situation gets too bad.
But do you really think they have the incentive to do anything about the world's poorest? You
One
know,
that
who maybe live on 15 to 20 pounds a month.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing we can change. If we can change the education, civil society, the governments have not succeeded by and large. There's some exceptions. If we take a look, I mentioned Korea earlier, China. In 1980, China was one of the least educated countries in the world. According to the PISA results earlier this decade, China is now 10% in terms of education outcomes, the results. Their results are 10% higher than the second best scoring country in the world. So when we look, we see what's possible. And I've traveled, I spent a month traveling around China in different cities in different parts of the country. And, it is amazing. If you talk to young people, the awareness of what's going on in the world and what's going on from every aspect, technology, just they're just so up to date and aware of all of this. Um, I actually
Are they
in
poor in the countryside? Are the Chinese poor?
yes, they're poor, but you know what? They've pretty much totally eliminated extreme poverty. And even if you go out into the remote areas, I went into some smaller villages there. The standard of living here it is huge. In 1970, I was in the New Territories in Hong Kong, looking across the border. It is just beyond belief what has been accomplished there for the population, where the population has risen. The poverty's gone down because they have actually poverty managers whose job it is to get everybody out of poverty. They actually actively sit there and look and see people who are in poverty, how to get them out of poverty. As I say, a lot of times by moving them into areas that don't have the disadvantages. A lot of poor people are stuffed into physical areas where the soil is not as good, where the infrastructure is not there, where the services are not there. And they've made a very distinct effort to get people to say, no, you don't have to stay in these miserable areas. We are going to help you move. And it was very interesting to watch that when they started doing that, and they did it in a very interesting way. They would build these new living areas they would sort of invite them to come, like a lot of places invite you to come to a resort for a weekend and buy a timeshare, and so you buy for vacation time in their area. So they invite you to come and try it out. That's what they did. They invited people from the poor, remote areas to come to these collection points and see what it's like to live in a modern apartment with the all the amenities and so forth. And then they said, well, when the time was up, you can stay and we will get you a job. We'll find you a job and we'll get you settled in, or you can go back. And it was interesting that almost all the elderly typically said, I want to go back. That's not where I grew up. That's where I live. I love my where I'm at, even though I don't have running water and I don't have sanitation. I don't have all these different things. But the younger people all stayed. And the elderly, after they went back and there was no young people in the community anymore, and they said, well, I don't like it anymore. I want to see my grandkids. I want to see my kids. And they all followed and moved to into these new areas there. And if you walk through those areas, they kept the neighborhoods together. So you had all the same neighbors that you had when you were in your village.
Right.
They put a lot of effort into thinking that through. And so this is something here. I know I'm talking to Amar Jaffrey. We're trying to figure out how can we do that vision Pakistan 2030, the Pakistan it could be if we achieved all these different things for the different populations. And the key thing is getting the engagement of the population going into those rural areas and saying, what's the future you want? Are you aware of what life is like in, let's say, certain cities? I'm not talking about the slums, I'm talking about the cities, but it takes active planning. We see so many developing countries that just say, you have to go to the cities because we can't give you the services in the countryside. And people just end up in slums because they just go on their own and they just have to take whatever they can get. But if it's organized and coordinated, we can actually make the opportunity so it becomes a win-win. So we can get the productivity that's going to enable us to service our elderly populations, to provide the healthcare and the education services and things like that. At the same time that we're enabling the people that are doing that work and providing those services a higher quality, a better quality of life.
Great. And excuse my interruption, but
Thank
Trudy,
you,
if
though,
you're able,
Jerica. Thank you,
yes,
really.
absolutely. Trudy, if you're able to come off of mute, you just made a wonderful comment of observation in the chat. If you could maybe elaborate that here on the floor.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I am Trudy and I am listening in from Trinidad and Tobago. I am saying basically that a lot of times, especially for instance, like in my country is still a developing country, and you find a lot of times we have access to education, we are fully educated, but then we do not have the opportunities at home. So whether it's in our communities or in the countries in which we live, we are then forced to leave our countries to get better opportunities abroad. And so there must be some holistic approach to ensuring that the education and the things that we learn, that we are able to really have our countries and communities benefit from the knowledge we've gained. That's basically it.
Trudy, this
Great. Thank you, Trudy.
yes,
And just one moment, Bill.
sure.
Joan, as we seek to cause this global pivot to happen, Trudy, uh, made a request for perhaps the holistic side. Perhaps you could provide a bit of commentary to that as we are seeking to make this change at scale globally. Perhaps also what would be the holistic side of that?
You're asking me, I think I heard my name.
Hi, Joan. Yes. Trudy just made a comment and rather a request of what would be the holistic side of that as we seek to make this global pivot. We are seeking to engage the hundreds of millions. With that type of mobilization, maybe you could provide a few points on what that, as a visionary, what that would maybe look like on a few holistic items.
Sure. I'm happy to. Hi, everyone. Trudy, I'm from Jamaica, by the way. I was born in Jamaica, and we didn't leave for economic reasons, but for other reasons. But I remember working with someone from Trinidad that I actually employed, a number of Trinidadians, and they were young people, and they left not because they wanted to, but because there was no work. But they pined for their families because it was a very close-knit community. And it made me very sad that people have to leave their own country because of money and having to make it. But if I mean, to be um, proactive, I don't like to use those words, but to be visionary, we need to not make decisions based on going in and extracting from communities, but to develop them and understand that people they need to eat, they need to have energy, they need to have clean water, and work with people who are trying to resolve those issues within their own countries. And when we talk about money and economics, we kind of have to look at why are we always looking that money is the um, this one of the biggest solution. Of course, it's important, uh, but I think that if we get back to communities, now I don't know if they did this in Trinidad. I'm pretty sure. I know the Indian community did it, where people grew food, and if someone grew tomatoes or beans or mangoes or whatever, and the other person grew something else, and they would exchange for dinner. I used to see that myself when I visited Trinidad, and I know they did it in Jamaica as well. And because I'm only saying that because I'm Indian and that's what they did. Um, they different neighbors would, instead of going to the grocery store, they would trade with each other and make dinner, and so that the food expense was lowered. Um, I think that when young people are trained going to school and they're looking at, well, what do I do with all this 18 years of going to school? And then, of course, higher education, where is that going to lead me? What experiences do I have? When I go to a country, they're always another country, they're asking for experience, they're asking for sensitivities and amalgamations and melting pots, and people don't want to give those things up. They want to be themselves. So what ends up in a lot of countries is that you have older people being left, which also depend on younger people to take care of them. So it's not just an economic thing, it's a family and communal thing that extracts from a community. And then you get displaced because now, you have to survive in the new country and you want to help your family in their own country. And so you're in perpetual poverty unless you work more than normal. So that's not a life to live either. So what's the solution? Lots of communities know their solutions, things that can help them. The problem that I see is that the funders and investors, they want to impose their own criteria on those places instead of listening to what the local community is saying, because of course they have to make money. They're not investing in people and communities, they're investing in money. And so there are different models that can happen. I personally think that education, we're taking a lot of, I'm not anti-education, by the way, I'm actually pro-education. But I keep saying, what does it lead to? People need hope. They need skills. They need to feel wanted. They need to feel like they're contributing. They want to help their families. They want to help themselves. They want to have a better world. I mean, those are universal things. So how do we make that happen? Um, of course, people need skills to move forward. Um, but we have to come to a place where, and AI is further displacing people, of course, because when someone didn't have an education, at least in Ontario, Canada, they could go and work on the assembly lines, for example. Now, the assembly lines are actually being taken over by AI. So there's that hope gone, where someone doesn't want to go to higher education. So I think that communities have to come together and say what makes us special. How do we connect to the rest of the world? How do we live our lives the way individuals want to realize their dreams, but then everyone is valued in that community? And I think that's a hard thing to do, and easy if we're all on the same page. Anyway, that's my commentary.
Thank you, Joan. And I
Yeah.
think it's really important that, we do look at things holistically. We have a lot of technical knowledge. We have a lot of data acquisition toward
Mhm.
things that have been successful over time. And so when we drill back kind of into that mass mobilization, what would be encouraging? What would be exactly influential? I think maybe now we can kind of drill down that conversation centered around our projects. We're all aware, pretty much everyone on the call, of the projects that we have in line to achieve these things. If we could, I'm going to open the floor. If you have comments on the Read for a Better World, comments on Vision Africa 2030, by now we have heard a lot over these months, and there's some here who have been here for a few years. If we could get some strong commentary on the floor on the projects, how we push the projects forward. I think that would be really, really helpful in this particular session.
Yeah, and keep in mind we have to be very careful. We talk about politicians and leaders and others not paying attention to things that are happening around them. So sort of assuming tomorrow is going to be a repetition of yesterday. And it's very important that we realize that the world is changing and changing very rapidly. So many of our projects, especially when we talk about projects for education, uh, we have to realize that the purpose, surveys show us that in universities in the United States, at least, 80% of students are strictly there to gain economic advantage, to be able to increase the amount of money they earn. And so if that goes by the wayside, we're seeing already the hiring of college graduates is way down this year and was down last year, but it's increasing. And England is experiencing this extremely rapidly. That college graduates are having a big problem trying to find those entry level jobs because AI is taking those over. And if we extend that out a couple of years, it's going to be more and more and more. We see BYD, the car manufacturer in China, they now have an AI assembly line component that creates the chassis, all the sheet metal chassis of the car. It's turning out one a minute with no humans. So, when they start producing cars for $1,000 that in the West we're selling for 50,000, uh, we're going to see the start of the kinds of problems. So when the driver getting more money falls by the wayside, we have to people still need a purpose. They still need to feel good about themselves. And education, I believe, is going to be more important that, but it may be a different kind of an education to know yourself, to know your values, to know what you feel makes you a good human. And but in the meantime, we have to focus on the things that the system is saying those are the important things of education to be able to create the education system that will be able to support that. So there's a lot of challenges, but I'm glad for the conversation here. Just when we be careful, we have to look. The United States, the community, by and large, the community in the United States has been destroyed. Uh, the the majority of people now, especially in suburban areas, they tend not to know their neighbors. They're just living there for a short time. We saw a study showing that was done for Rotary membership that there's a huge difference between rural communities where the majority of people went to school and grew up in that community, and suburban communities where the great majority of the people did not grow up in those communities and have no roots, and therefore they don't participate in elections, they don't participate in anything in those communities. And there's a lot of impact going to take place. And how do we care for the elderly? Is it going to be the family, or are we going to have highly automated elderly homes that cater to the elderly? There's so many issues like this that they need to be explored, but we have to be very careful that we don't get romanticized to just say, oh, I was telling Jerica, we were talking yesterday, that about 50 years ago now, the leader of a large civil rights organization was saying the worst thing that ever happened to humanity was the discovery of electricity, because that enabled, before that, people they got up and went to bed with the rhythm of the sun. When the sun came up and the sun went down, that's when you had to go to bed. And their lives were driven by those things, and they didn't have running water and things like this. So they had to spend their time walking and getting exercise to get water and all this. And she was saying she would hope that the whole world could go back living in grass huts with no electricity and no water. I I don't know. I have a hard time picturing that, as opposed to that we can say, you shouldn't have to necessarily fight for the things for survival, but we have to have something. So we got to move on to things that are more worthy than worrying about just those survival things. And we have to be
And I
careful.
think, Bill, if we could have some members of the group
Yeah.
maybe even touch on that with what we've been drilled for the past year.
Mhm.
And I feel as though everyone should have a certain body of information that they hold about our projects. It would be really great to hear commentary on your ideas, maybe pathways forward, and not just from maybe your own conceptions or your own projects, the success rates of your own projects. Can we get some commentary on how we can push our projects forward with all of the tools and the information, the heavy information that we've had, especially over these last few months? Um, I would like to open the floor for commentary on how, um, in your in your scope of practice, in the industry that you're currently active in, what do you see as the pathway forward for our projects, as we are the influencers of the influencers, and taking these things to the next level as members, as functioning and contributing members of the group? Um, at times, we've been presented with external ideas. Well, you could just apply this here. That's not exactly what we're seeking to do, especially with the particular projects that we have at hand that we would like to move forward. I would like to hear those comments from the floor. I would like to hear about what the pathways forward could be. What particular contribution can we make as members of this group in the regard of your expertise in industry as we seek to encourage and build the relevance of not only the UN but Rotary. We have been given information of the past and how we used to function as Rotarians, as those who gathered together to wield their power to push things forward. So I would love to just quickly, I know we don't have a lot of time, but open the floor for that. Mark
Jerica,
Henry,
Mark Henry's got his hand
I
up.
see you have your hand. Yes.
Thank you. Just confirm that you can hear me well.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm driving, so if there's a problem, just let me know. And then I'll speak closer to the car speaker. Yeah, Jerica, I think you get to a point that I've been thinking we really should get to, because we really have crystallized the ideas. But I am very, very much old school as an engineer. And I think before we get to this point, we need to have our ideas documented in one way or another. So I don't know if you have some form of documentation or a write-up on some of these ideas. I would be very happy to put some effort into, helping crystallize the draft, especially since I'm now leaving the presidency, so I will have a lot more Rotary time. But I think it will help us look for, where have we failed to optimize? Where are we failing in our planning and project management? The second thing which I see, I really liked the contribution of the two new guests. I was on and off. I didn't quite pick their names, but I thought as we start growing and getting some people who are coming in and we are synergizing, again, that's where also this documentation will be very, very powerful, because then we'll just say, okay, this is what we're doing. So where would you like to contribute, or where can we increase the scale of what we're doing? So
Yes,
that's my
thank you.
contribution. I mean,
Thank you,
it's
Mark
been a
Henry.
great discussion, and if we could pull it together, even in the process of documenting that, just by writing, it's a meditative process. We'll kind of pick out, oh yeah, no, we need to do this. Oh yeah, this is really, just
Yes,
that
and
commitment to document.
I think everyone maybe not everyone here, but we can definitely get everyone invited to those Google Docs so that you can absolutely make those comments on the documents so that we're able to solidify those edits and then be enabled in our industries to run communications, because that's one of the most powerful things that we can do. We are a composition of business and civic leaders in this group. So if we are empowered with those particular documents to run those communications and bring those resources back to push the projects forward, I think that we'll be really successful with management, because we can't manage just ideas and things out of the air and simple, even our conversations on a weekly basis. We would like to really see these things get into the physical and push them forward. So thank you so much, Mark Henry. Do we have any other comments from the floor in regard to the specificity of what I've expressed here?
I'd love to jump in for a minute.
Thank you, Jay.
I love this part of the conversation always, of how to get it practically implemented, and there's been a lot of movement in my world of that integration and documentation potential of how we bring all these ideas together, and going back to the education at, I think, at a deeper level, of empowerment, of empowering individuals on their, on who they are, and figuring out things of importance that is beyond what the traditional school system has delivered. And so we're kind of focused on that right now, and have brought together a beautiful team that will, uh, I think, make something that's very inviting and engaging, and addressing a lot of these issues, and hopefully helping to empower all these projects. So I think we're on the right track with that part of the quotient, that we have to look at another level of the system collapse that's been happening and has happened. And for us on the AI side, um, we're in the midst of a white paper right now on AI and model collapse, which is one of the dangers of AI in its a systemic problem, in its makeup, that we are now addressing, and I believe by the creativity of humans and our uh, divine potential being implemented in a direct way, is kind of the savior for AI. So we have to find this balance of using the technology, that's going to actually help it to expand and be of service to humanity, and we're it. It's being educated to trust in ourselves and in our communities and in our families and cultures, and all the amazing amount of information that has been uh, 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 that we have at our fingertips now with the AI. It's now, there's this, again, a lot of negative things and programming and old programming, but there's so much new. So we're in it for the kind of this new, after the collapse, which we're in the middle of right now. It's not something way in the future. It's like right now. That's why I think this group and the challenges of the world is to, how do we make this transition to another world? And we're in the midst of it, and I think we have to put our stock into that. What are we building, and why, and to envision a better future. Not just trying to defend the old and trying to prop up the systems that have been kind of the failing of this world right now. Is so anyhow, that's my commentary right now.
Jay, you said something
Thank you,
I think
Jay.
it's very interesting here, about the transition. I think this goes back to what Joan was talking about as well. One of the things we have to keep in mind is that AI is going to replace jobs. That's just not a consequence, an unintended consequence. It's actually the purpose behind AI. The people that are driving AI it's just a continuation of technology in general, and it's the continuation of the drive to be more efficient, that has existed for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the push for AI is to eliminate jobs, to increase. I won't, maybe not eliminate jobs, maybe it's to increase productivity. But a major piece is, hey, how can we provide whatever we provide in our business or service? How can we do it at less cost, or more efficient? Companies don't exist.
Well, also we have to observe, Bill, that it's kind of looked at as AI would be some sort of free labor, but that's not true. It costs. There are data centers. There's cost
Oh, yeah, yeah,
monetarily.
yeah.
There's
No,
cost and environmentally as
yes,
well. So
Yeah.
how can we, as William said earlier, we can't base our intelligence or even our future functions as humanity on what AI can provide. It is certainly up to the user. So if we could as
That's
Mark
not where I was
Henry
going
said,
though, Jerica.
and but involve the group in the Google Docs
Yeah.
so that the commentary can be made and that we can refine this idea, because it's really important that we're all on the same page. A lot of the times on Saturdays, we'll give our comments or we'll give our ideas. But you also have to redirect those ideas based on what our particular goals are. And I think that we can be a little more instrumental on our Saturdays
Yeah.
if we all, not only make our comments on Telegram or what have you, but if we are involved in curating and solidifying those documents that we can send out for communications.
Yeah.
But we all have to be on a certain accord. Our mindset is just as important as the mindsets we seek to shift in the world to cause these global pivots. It's what we are doing in the nature of our clubs to cause these things to happen. And if we have that in some sort of document form, not just a run on conversation, I think that in the timeline that we've been presented as far as the existential threat, I think that we have to get moving on that portion of it. But
Yeah.
we all must be on an accord. And I think it's really important that we take really good observation individually to our manifesto,
Yeah.
observe and study what we're doing as far as our projects and what you as an individual, whether you're a civic or a business leader, what your particular contribution can be in those facets. I think that would be really, really great
No,
for us
Jerica,
to move
those are really
forward.
important, but I was trying to go and bring up a different point. The point I was
Yes.
trying to bring up is not us, not we in the sense of our club and us. Or a lot of times when you go, especially if you're around the UN and you hear this word we tossed around so many times when they're saying we, like we meaning humanity, we. But we have to really realize for example, there was a statistic brought out recently. For every dollar being spent in efforts to promote and preserve jobs for humans, there are $34 being spent to figure out how to eliminate jobs for humans.
Yeah.
In other words, businesses don't exist to give people jobs. Businesses exist to do whatever their service or their production is, and humans are just a almost like a necessary evil that if I could avoid it, that hey, that would be better. It's important that we know that so that we are not
Yes.
thinking that it's just an unintended consequences that jobs are going to be lost.
Yes.
And it's not an ethics thing. It's not an ethics thing because it could be that it's most ethical to eliminate human jobs. If you're, for example, let's say you've a company that you are making medical devices, prosthetics or medications, whatever, and you just came to this conclusion that you can help people with whatever you're manufacturing. You want to be able to help as many people as possible, so you have to get your costs down as low as possible. And so a lot of times this conflict, and I'm bringing this up because I just had a big discussion on Japan, what they're doing in Japan on Society 5.0, which is saying we need to put the human in the center of all economic activity, meaning companies should be serving number one, their employees, and then number two is the market. And I think they're going to they're going to get a huge problem with that. So we just need to be realistic in understanding the things that are motivating this so that when we try to go and say, where's the future that we want? We don't want a future here with a whole bunch of starving and hungry people or huge inequalities and things like that. We want to see how do we avoid those, but to be able to realistically avoid them, we have to understand what are the things that are driving the world the way the world works today. So that's all I
Absolutely.
want to
And
say.
we've got Augustine
Yeah.
first and then Joan. Thank you all.
Yes, Augustine.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Bill, for this discussion, and thank you for all our colleagues who are, they have contributed. But for me, I would like to add some addition to what Mr. Mark Henry has said, and our sister Whitrock and the others, that maybe this is a time for us to have clear framework of our project, because I thank you, Mr. Bill, for this initiative there to be great. I think this will assist so many people to change their mindset and to move forward towards the developments we want to we are focusing. So I think, just as Mr. Mark has said, and the others, it is very important to have a framework and how on what you are doing, because you have been discussing so long time here with the discussion. But I think we need to move forward toward these actions and to make sure that we are going to reach at or to what you have been discussing. So clear framework will assist us to know where we start, where we are going to start, and where we are going to focus on. So that is my contribution. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you so much, Augustine. Joan, I see you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really like the idea of not so much documenting, but having evolving document. But I think that you really hit a pivotal spot for me, which is we have to identify the purpose of what we're doing and agree to it. Because if you don't agree, you cannot come up with a strategy and a way forward. Because always there's going to be questions. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? You can add goals to a purpose, but what is our purpose? What is the vision of what we are trying to do? And it has to be broad so that we can have goals and pathways. You don't necessarily have to have one pathway. You can have maybe three because different people function differently. And we want to acknowledge people's values and skills. And so I think that's a way forward. That's number one. And number two, we have to stop looking at people and only discuss the major focus of what humans have been doing, which is economic. Like if you don't have money and you don't have two cars and you don't have a big house, you're nobody. Like who is a nobody? Everybody's a somebody. And we have to get past the economic stratification of society and acknowledge people for who they are first. We have to stop using terms like the developing world and the developed world. Like that's an economic that's just economic. And I think that when I talk, there's a place called Bhutan. I don't know if you guys know, it's a little country, and their first and foremost focus is happiness. No, you can say happiness is abstract.
Well, gross
Because
national happiness. I'm actually starting to work with them with some people in Bhutan, Joan, right
yeah,
now, and they're part. My team has grown in this last couple of weeks, and that's Troy has been a big critical next step here. And
yeah,
they're not only are they doing because the gross national happiness was a big
yeah,
thing, 20, 30 years
yeah,
ago, known,
yeah,
and so they're leveling that up. The kingdom is leveling that up now
yes,
where
Yes.
they're going to create, instead of the smart city, they're
Yeah.
calling it a mindful city, a mindfulness city. So
Yeah.
they're going to the next level all the way through. And so this is one of the proof points that we want to bring in our tech infrastructure and bringing some of the game things that we've been talking about over the last months here, and that's moving forward. So thank you for bringing up Bhutan, because I think it's going to be
Yeah.
a great demonstration center for the new world that we're trying to build of this,
Yes.
you know.
Fabulous. Well, I'd love to learn more about that. You and I should actually be talking, but we haven't. But I met an ambassador for Bhutan maybe about 15 years ago, and she was telling me about this 15 years ago. And I remember reiterating it at the conference that I was at, which is a technology conference, which I was a chair for one of the groups. And I mentioned it because I was so happy to hear this, right? And the negative comments, like there was not one positive comment about that strategy. And
Crazy.
because they just couldn't understand, like, happiness was that. I will confess on this platform when our daughter was growing up, my husband and I said, what was our role as what we would like to be known as great parents, other than providing all the provisions, is that we had a happy child. And because we were happy as a couple, because we actually bucked the system and we did what we wanted to do. My husband went to school and had his master's degrees, and I have my horticultural stuff. But we didn't get corporate jobs. And for years and years, we were offered lots of opportunities, and we were like, no, we want to live our lives the way we want, and we're happy, and we wanted to pass that on. And we found that so many people are unhappy with their lives and their choices because they either didn't have the wherewithal to choose, or they just wanted to do what everybody wanted them to do. Whatever. I don't want to be a psychologist. I'm not. I'm just saying from my
Mhm.
personal thing that when you're happy, you're able to do a lot of things that you're passionate about and not let other people get into your space, because it doesn't matter if they approve of you or not. And that's I talk about building confidence all the time about who you are and what you want to have, because everyone else will tell you what you should be.
Right.
And what you
Yes,
should be
I
is not
agree.
what you feel
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah,
You've got to take that, what you feel inside, and contribute it in some way for a better society. So I just wanted to say that.
absolutely. Thank you, Joan.
Yeah.
And
Uh, uh, Jarek, I want to just bring up something that Joan and
and
Jay both
I yeah.
referred to.
Go ahead.
And I just did a
And can I
quick
just
little
one
survey, a
quick comment
question.
before you get going, Bill?
Yeah.
It's just a quick comment
Okay.
before you get started on that. Um, we held the first international conference for peace at the United Nations, and it was based on happiness. And we utilized Bhutan as an example. We even invited Pharrell to perform his happy song.
Mhm.
Millions of dollars were spent on that particular display and a few high level conversations that followed it. But what we weren't able to see was even the slightest global pivot for happiness, So as we observe these things that we would like to experience, we're looking here. And like I said, I want more comments on the projects that we have at hand, because we're looking to do these things at scale. We are looking to cause a global pivot to happen. So surrounding what we have in our pocket right now and focusing on those things, where can we expand our mind frames? Where can we think outside of the box for those pathways of success for the frameworks that we're building? I just wanted to add that in. Thank you so much. And thank you, Bill.
Yeah, and to the comments on Bhutan. First of all, to the projects we have tremendous documentation here on the projects. It's probably way more than 100 pages, and so we're going to make that available. Unfortunately, I had some issues, especially in the medical area here, that have limited my ability to accomplish as much as I would like to clean those documents up, because they were created over a period of about 7 years. And there's just a lot of redundancies and things like that. Anyway, we're going to definitely, that's on our plate, to make the project information on our roughly a dozen projects available to everybody, get comment, because we want to actually move forward on the implementation. Timing wise, because a lot of what we were looking to do is linked to the UN. The UN has a change of Secretary General this year that makes it difficult to do things. So we're not really losing time at this point on some of that stuff, but we definitely need to move it forward. As far as the Bhutan thing here, one thing we have to be, Joan said, hey, we gotta make sure that we have the same goals, the same vision of where we're trying to get to, and we, have to, that's very important. And because I just did a quick little AI questionnaire on Bhutan, and the happiness rating of Bhutan is very controversial, because it gets down to the question of bias as to what is the definition of happiness. How do we define happiness? So it turns out that there is actually significant inequality in standard of living in Bhutan, and people are not happy. There's a lot of suffering going on because of the political structure and so forth there. The happiness rating is because the questions were mostly about family, and family is very held very, very high in Bhutan. And it's a small country, so it's the families tend to be able to remain close knit, and that seems to be the happiness. But the bottom line is that when you make a statement on something like happiness, it really gets down to what are you measuring, and who's measuring. So that people who say family is above all, and if somebody else says here, my comfort level, do I have a swimming pool, and do I have servants delivering my meals? That's my happiness. You're going to get different answers. And that makes it for us important when we try to go and say, okay, what's the vision that we are trying to bring about, or that we would like to see, that we've got to spend some time trying to shape that vision. This is why when we talk about things like Vision Africa 2030 or Vision Pakistan, one of the first projects we'd like to see in Africa, and we had to start with in some young people in Ghana, was to have young people in schools to create some videos that would present their vision of the Ghana that they would like to see going forward. And so you would have different populations in different areas. They could have different visions of the world they would like to see. And then so we this project is called Future We Want, Vision Africa 2030. You have to start off with the vision you're trying to work for. You have to be able to present that to the people, and win that the people are saying, yes, yes, we want that vision. Therefore, we're willing to work towards things that we believe are going to help make that vision a reality. So that's a key piece of our philosophy, that how we want to go forward. But the important thing is to realize that when we go and say, hey, that's where everybody's happy. We get in Finland. Finland is rated
Bill,
as
could
one
I
of the
jump in
happiest
there?
countries as well.
Could I
Agreeing
just
with
jump
this.
in?
Go ahead.
Um, Again, I want to keep on the Bhutan, and because we're in the midst right now of presenting to the ex-minister of Bhutan, I got his ear through what you had challenged me and us about, for challenge classrooms and being able to, be able to deliver to and work with a specific classrooms to show results. And and the so this has happened in this last few days, in this last week, that he came back and said it's not just the kids. It's not about the kids. It's really about the if inspiring the teachers and the parents. So which we're really playing into to have more of a collective cultural experience, and as part of that education. But we brought forth that concept of really targeting into a primary age, classroom, that fourth grade classroom that we talked to, and I've been kind of focusing on that, and so we're in the middle of a dialogue right now with this ex-minister, and also somebody who can bring it to at a kingdom level, in Bhutan, of some of the shift that they're trying to work on right now. So first of all, I want to thank you for getting that focus point of really bringing it down to a specific, targeted classroom that we can show results, in multiple. And for me, we've expanded it to, we want to do this around the world. So Bhutan would be one classroom. In Ghana would be another classroom.
Yes.
We have challenged classrooms around the world, and we target in, and we offer a mechanism for people to educate in a new way, more playful, and make it engaging. And I know you don't like the word fun, Bill, but making it fun and engaging for that classroom, and now to expand it from this ex-minister talking about, that it's more a family affair, to bringing in, how do we bring in the parent, and how do we, or parents, or how do we inspire that teacher to kind of level up their game. So this is something that's happening right now, and again, thanks for being one of the inspiration points for that focus point. And I think, I'd love to share some of the I think I did with you, Bill, last time. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see some of the documentation that we're presenting right now through a shock, bringing it, to Rotary. But I think we have some solutions by us piecing it together. That's the campaign. That if we piece it together, we can win. And doing this remodeling, it's reframing the game. It's not that we have to prop up the system, that we have to really build a new system, and that's by the people, that what people want and need, and who they are, their purpose. So that's what we're going to, the kind of down to their core, who, the child, who, what are they here for, what have they been wired to do, and it's inside of them to be able to unlock that, unleash their God-given power inside of them. And so anyhow, I just wanted to throw that in, and it was such a synchronistic connection with Troy in Bhutan, and his work that he's doing that ties in with gamification as well. And so anyhow, there's been a lot of progress, and I'd love to share the results with you guys here, and as we move forward, because we have a great collective now that will help with that documentation, making it more interesting, and tying in with the AI on a whole nother level, and bringing in the semantic web, and doing, just a whole nother way to educate our youth, and us to again reframe the game. So anyhow, just want to make that comment.
Thank you so
And
much.
can I just say something? I don't think that we should go in and define what happiness is. That's up to the individual and or local community, and what will make their community healthy and happy.
Yeah.
And then each individual can define it. I'm not suggesting that we say this is happiness, because then we're
Yeah,
doing exactly what the economic model says.
what
This
the
is what.
UN attempted to do with the Happiness Summit. Yes, absolutely.
No. So
Yeah.
I think that when there's pushback, that's kind of a good thing, because you need conflict in order to resolve something. And when you have a system that has bet down people for so long, it's very difficult to say to them, you have the power within yourself to do it, when they're like, well, I just need a job and I want to eat,
All right.
like, so What we have to do is be very visionary and inclusive, use inclusive language and saying, yeah, we have a starting point that this may be the model that we start with. It's not the one we're going to end with.
Yeah,
So your comments, that sort of thing, like I've found that worked whenever I facilitate anything is say, okay, listen, we have to have a starting point. It's not 100%. Let's just start somewhere and build on it. And because you can't make change without building on something and also changing when it needs to happen.
that's why I love the model that we're using is the reframe of monopoly into coopoly. So that's kind of the essence of our presentation. And if you look at the monopoly board, you start at go and you go around, you keep buying properties, and but the goal is wrong, right? The goal is what we call bass backwards. That
Yeah.
there's only one winner, right? That's the challenge with the whole notion of the game, and it's the bastardization of what monopoly was from when it was originally the landlord's game. So we're kind of trying to revive that with coopoly, and the structure that's there is sound of going around this board and learning and building and going through these different phases and different experiences. But it's not just to make money and to buy real estate and to bankrupt the other players. That it's now that we can be there, that a game that everybody can win, because we're looking at how we can piece it together, and everybody that's playing that game could be a contributor to create now a stronger world, or a stronger community or a family or whatever level we want to go to.
I think here it's going to be very interesting here over the next few years because, on the one hand, AI is empowering people, but it's empowering certain people more than others. And unfortunately, some of the people that it's empowering are people that their pleasure in life is dominating others. And so this is a major thing we have to be worried about is how do we prevent technology from enabling a small percentage of people who are not interested in coopoly, they're not interested in cooperation, they're not interested in the rest of the people in the world from going and leveraging the technology to advantage themselves over others.
I'm less
Um,
worried about that now, Bill, because again, what we've always known this, but now it's becoming a thing of where the technology is going. And this is a very big danger in AI is this model collapse. They call it model collapse. And so we're the solution by what we're talking about and by people cooperating together and sharing their cultural heritage and being able to bring together on a localized level and a direct impact on the individual, and that and having a better communication mechanism. And this is what's going to kind of help AI to continue to evolve itself. So there's model collapse, and I'm making the equation right now that we're in model collapse in our world, but the AI is kind of a new entity that's reared its head, but its danger is the same thing that we're going through right now ourselves. And so I think there's a solution there of bringing this all together. But again, this has been our challenge between us, which is fine, between the competition model and the co-opetition model. So I'm going to stay with it, and you can stay with your competition, thinking that that's the way to go at it, and that's fine because that's what is and was. And I believe I'm coming from a perspective of where we are of transforming what was into what will be. So the future for us to thrive, I'm a believer and have been for this 50 years of working on this project of that it's around co-opetition and collaboration and you know uh, uh, and finding a good bridge, of utilizing that competition on a personal individual level, absolutely. But we have to up the game on how as a species and as a humanity that we're treating each other, and So I think that's the jump that we need to make, and we
Yeah.
have an opportunity now to do, you know.
I think we're looking at the same result and saying, "Hey, yeah, that's where we need to go." My concern is, in the UN, whenever there was almost every time there was a speech made, somebody would use the word "we," and I would always ask them when they say, "We have to do this," or "We're going to do this," and I would say, "Can you introduce me to Mr. We? Who's that we?" Because most times the we doesn't exist. It's just a
Mhm.
term we use. And so there are definitely people out there whose goal is me, and they don't really even care whether the rest survive or don't survive, or maybe they do, and they would prefer that the rest do not survive. That's if you go and ask any model and say, what is the path that we're on? Where is it most likely to lead? You'll probably come very quickly that one of the big dangers is that the productivity gains will reduce the demand for humans, and the winners, the very small percentage of winners, maybe 1%, are going to become afraid of the masses, and may decide to take a preemptive strike. And you may have heard that what is it, Amadei from Anthropic talking here just in the last week, calling for increased surveillance on anything to do with chemical or biological, because AI could literally come up with something that could target 7 billion people almost overnight. So it's important that we don't have rose-colored glasses on
Well,
that
the humans have
assume.
already done that. We don't have to worry about the AI. We already have our human faction, a very small percentage of people that are targeting the human race to kind
Well,
of wipe us out, you know,
yeah.
so or to minimize us. So that's it's the human creativity. That's what we're talking to,
So,
though.
yeah, but the main thing is we have to recognize that there is that danger so that we make sure that we do not assume everybody is nice and loving. And we have to be sure that we have made provisions, contingency provisions, to deal with the possibility that malintended people may declare war on the rest of us.
Well,
So
that's already happened. What are you talking about?
no,
That's
it's
what's
happened.
been.
But the thing about it is they never had the weapons that they're getting now, so that's the difference. So and therefore, until now, the even the leaders, the handful of owners, were dependent on the masses for their well-being and their survival, and that dependency is going away, and that's what's changing in the world significantly, and we have to prepare for that. And we don't have a lot of time to prepare for that. But it's just one thing. So we have a lot of positives that we can work on to up the situation of the masses, to reduce the inequalities. But there's also we have to prepare for the possibility of some bad actors taking actions that will eradicate the existence of the masses.
Yeah,
Um,
Shadowlands exist. That's we call that
That
Shadowlands in the
attitude,
game.
sorry, if we take that attitude, we're always making decisions in fear.
Right.
And the thing is that we have to be aware of fear, of course. So when we work on our document, we define our purpose and vision and what we want to do. We may have to have a section that says, what is the AI implications here, and have some strategies around that. But we can't be having a document in fear. We have to have a document that's visionary and positive. And
Absolutely.
it,
we
it,
need both. We need both.
that's what I'm saying, that we define it. The thing is that when you have fear, you're always looking at the person with, not trusting them, or but if you're going to offer programs, you have to trust the people that you're working with. There are bad people and there are good people, and all people are good and all people are bad. I'm so sick of hearing there's them and us. There's no such thing. It's the degree to which people do things and the social conscience that they have that limits them to things.
Yeah.
To say that one set of people are good and the other set is bad is probably one of the worst definitions I've seen of human life, or one's better or the other. Come on, it's how we do things.
I think we have to be like meteorologists, like weathermen. The weathermen here, they're not looking here. The weather's not good or it's not bad, but we've got to be able to project where the tornadoes coming, where the
And a lot of
storms
times they're
coming.
wrong too.
Oh,
So
I know.
it's
But the
And a
thing
lot of
about it
times
is,
they're manufacturing the weather to make the tornado, in
yeah,
fact.
like what
but
I'm saying is that we can't be making decisions just solely on what ifs or whatever. All of those what ifs will happen.
no, but the
I
thing
mean,
about it is
I've been
that it's
along.
that saying. The saying I think is very true. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. That I think you cannot avoid that situation and be successful over time.
Trust in
Fine,
Allah,
but
but tie up your
whatever,
camel.
yeah,
Trust in
whatever
Allah,
we
but try and tie up
do,
your camel.
yeah, whatever we do, let's just do something because you can make mistakes. I mean, I've been in business all my life. I can tell you, I've had lots of successes and lots of
Oh yeah.
things that went awry that you can sit and try to be planning and doing but external forces are just there. The thing is that you learn from it and you build and you pick yourself up and you move forward, and criticism is going to come, and analysis, and this doesn't measure good on the scale of economics, the blah 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 blah. You know what is it that we're doing? What impact do we want to make? How is it improving people's lives? How is it including input from all of our partners? Like, let's start there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And again, giving it a context that everybody can play together in that same, and contribute together. That's why I love this term, to piece it together. If we piece it together, we win. Otherwise, we're back in our same old silos and doing our things. And even if it's brilliance, it's disconnected. We have to be able to connect all the pieces together now.
One thing here that I think you may all be interested in this whole direction that we're talking about here is this week I had a meeting with a team from Congo, the Conference of NGOs at the United Nations. They are the facilitating association to facilitate the interaction between a civil society and the United Nations. And that right from the beginning of the United Nations, it's Article 71, I think. The United Nations recognized the importance of civil society to make sure that what the United Nations does reflects the whole we the people the mentality. So the reason for the meeting that we had is that we had started a discussion of how to use artificial intelligence to facilitate the structure, the effectiveness of the structure of Rotary. We have 46,000 clubs. We do 1 million projects every 5 years. The results that we achieve are basically none. We achieve results for the people that we touch, but in terms of the overall global situation, moving forward, addressing problems, getting closer to resolution of problems, we're not having impact. So the idea here is, can we use AI in the form of our committees? In Rotary, that's the Rotary action groups, and it's the areas of focus groups. Can we do something so that they can be more effective in contributing or supporting the success of our 46,000 clubs on the ground? So instead of just going out there and saying, everybody go do some good, and then we get redundant efforts all over the place, and a lot of failures, project failures, because people don't necessarily have the resources or the expertise that would benefit them. How do we add value from those central functions to the ground forces? And the civil society has exactly the same situation. The Conference of NGOs organizes the creation of committees for all kinds of areas of focus so that the NGOs who share visions or interests can collaborate to try to improve the situation on whatever area of focus that they're interested in. So we had a project last year that we were talking about, which was creating a diplomat's toolkit that would help the representatives of UN missions when they meet in the committees at the UN and they're trying to um, um, have collaborative consensus building, but also to accomplish something with the results of that consensus building. Could we help find tools that would help them understand the problems that they're discussing, understand how to what the positions are of all the stakeholders, and why, to understand the positions of the other delegations and how can they reach consensus on things. So this is the same thing. So right now we're actively working with Congo to create a framework that will enable committees to be more effective in determining what are the issues within their respective areas of focus, understanding what the opportunities are, and looking at opportunity analysis of opportunity costs to how they could have the greatest impact within their areas of focus, what it would take, and what are the positions of all the different players, and so forth, and then how to create subcommittees maybe that would move forward the individual initiatives to actually make true difference in the world. So we're looking to do that on the one hand with the Conference of NGOs at the United Nations of Civil Society. And in that way, if we can show that we can help all the forces on the grounds be more successful, that is going to encourage more people to say, hey, yes, let's work together. And that is going to combat some of this move at the UN against multilateralism and against international cooperation. Some of you are aware that an American representative to one of the committees last year got up and said the United States cooperation, international cooperation is not in the interest of the United States, and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is also not in the interest of the United States. Over an hour-long speech, I think it was in March of last year, to a major committee. So we need to combat that, and one of the best ways is to be able to show some positive results. And again, we can't roll up our sleeves and do all the work, but what we can do is influence and try to facilitate, try to create the frameworks that will enable others to be successful. So we're looking to do that at the UN with civil society, at the UN by supporting the missions, the representatives from the countries to the missions, to the committees, and in Rotary through the action groups and the areas of focus groups who are trying to put together things that will maximize the success of the people on the ground. Example, if we say open defecation, 600,000 kids a year die from the results of open defecation in the world. We want to get rid of open defecation, fine. What can we do? Can we bring expertise together? How do we leverage economies of scale so that we can optimize the use of resources, but not in a way to say, okay, on the ground you do this, because we're only there to support them. So to the degree we can create the supply chains, the specifications, the training materials, consultants, expert assistance that can be available, so that a local Rotary Club that decides, hey, we have this problem with the water contamination in our community. What are our options that they can go to someplace that has all the research and the results that they can quickly find what the possibilities are, and get the assistance from everything from funding to materials to expertise to be able to successfully deal with that, address that issue. So
Well, I'm gonna
we're
can I say something? Can I add in and actually just to be supportive of that? That again, pretty soon we're going to have this infrastructure, a new infrastructure that's being constructed. We're putting some pieces together now on a tech platform again of a whole stack of different technologies that are integrating together. Again, I'm bringing in the gamification, playification part of it, and that'll be available for testing very soon and then it's going to scale out from there. So I'd love to be able to have that introduce that into the group. You know, we're hopefully going to introduce it to Rotary soon, and we'd love to introduce it to as you know as a vehicle at the UN of looking at all the amazing projects and people that are out there that are working every day and being at it and be able to again see where people are at and make those connection points and have the AI to help connect us together in a better way. That's its purpose, is to help us to connect us together. That if I'm doing a project here in California and somebody else is doing one similar in Bhutan or in Dubai or wherever, that we can now connect together and be able to share resources and information. And so creating that infrastructure, I think, is really important now that we have the power of this AI to help empower us to connect together better and to find our own purpose. For me, that I'll always go back to that. This is about finding our own unique individual purpose as part of the collective, and that's where I think we can win in this way is by connecting together all of our if we're all on this pathway of us realizing our potential, our higher potential, and then being able to support each other in that. That's the I think it's a shift in consciousness, and I have to hop off in a few
yeah.
minutes, but I just wanted to
No, I'd like
connect
to
with
know
that.
more. I'd like to know more about that, what you're doing there. And the other area here is Rotary has this thing called community needs assessment. Every Rotary Club is tasked to do surveys in a very formal way of what are the needs in their community. And that is a mandatory requirement before you can apply for any kind of a global grant or anything like that. So we are actually looking to be able to also provide a tool set that will assist any Rotary Club who may not have local expertise on how to do these surveys or what they need to do questions on and so forth to assist local Rotary clubs in performing the community needs assessment. And by collecting that through AI to be able to create a world inventory of needs. And that can then serve whether you're looking here at the UN, whether you're looking at civil society, but the ability to go and do opportunity cost analysis across things that you can do, looking at what you've got available for resources, what's going to have the greatest impact. So this is a set of things that is moving forward. We're having discussions on making increasing the effectiveness. It's very much here. We're working here to say, how do we improve the centralized functions of the world to be able to support and maximize the success of all of the fringe and other elements of the world, because the central parts of the world, they don't do this stuff, but we can consolidate everything where it's advantageous to consolidate or centralize, and we maximize the effectiveness of everything that is best done locally.
I'd love to hear more about the again that assessment, and again just to for those that haven't seen it, this framework that we've been developing can fit in really nicely, I think, here because it gives a universal context, but it's down on a local level of what it is in that neck of the woods. So again, this is the coopoly that I'm actually working on right now, but instead of it being Marvin Gardens and Park Place as the whole journey to of wealth and real estate, it's really dealing with everything from indigenous, cultural, arts, music, and wellness, and with the financial as part of it, and the whole business and sustainability and nonprofits and schools, education, theater, so we have the whole context, more of a universal context in Coopoli, and that's what we're trying to achieve is to get the best structure that can really be a universal structure, but then contractually connect down to the individual, that they can use it as a template for their own development in their life and in their family and their community. So that's what we're trying to achieve with this work, and yeah. So I think there's a lot of momentum right now, and to develop this online and to tie it in with the AI and to bring all the projects in. So I'd love to see more about the assessment and how we can support that, and support Rotary to do its work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And Joan, I want to mention something because you talked about the positive, focusing on the positive. And that is here we've seen over the last 80 years, especially, that in most of the developed world, the community concept, the very concept of community, and even the concept of family has mostly collapsed. Mobility and communication has been the primary causes of that, plus the whole factor of economies of scale. But the as soon as the mobility was there, so that it was very easy to move anywhere and live anywhere, and as the communication took place, that you didn't have to be locally. I saw it in my own family. My mother grew up, there were 13 cousins, first cousins, all attending the same high school at the same time. And that not one of those cousins ended up living within 500 miles of any other cousin here as they grew up and scattered across the whole country. But this is very well documented what has taken place with that. There's a lot of research that was done out of Belgium in Europe, how the same thing took place in Europe on a different timetable because the US started right after World War II. We didn't have our infrastructure destroyed and everything. So it took off on one speed and Europe took off on another speed because they had to recoup from the war. I believe AI is going to radically reverse that, and we are going to see a return to community and family. And the thing that's going to drive that is when there are no jobs. Right now, almost all the mobility and the communication is job driven, and jobs basically are driving lives for most people in the developed world. And when jobs disappear, at least the compensated jobs disappear, there's going to be no need to travel, and people are going to start to develop the roots in their communities again. So I think that I see that as a positive development that's going to happen. However, it's only going to happen if we solve this problem of the 1% owning everything, including all the land, and the other 99% basically living at the pleasure of the 1%, where the 1% can basically control every aspect of the lives of the other 99%.
You have to
So
reframe the game, as they say, reframing the
yeah,
game.
so that
And we have the power because we have that 99%. We just have to catalyze that power and
um,
connect it together.
yeah. As I say, the most of the research I've done has shown the 1% has always won against the 99% pretty much throughout history. And that's why we have to be very aware that we need to do something about it. But assuming we do, assuming we can come and create the equality across everybody, then I believe we're going to get back to a world where people will focus on community because survival is not going to be a driving issue, and therefore family and community is going to become much more important with most people's lives. My hopes, anyway, my hopes, and I believe as long as we make that a goal, that we don't just let ourselves be driven down the river by with all the driftwood, but we take a proactive position to try to make sure that the world that we want, the future we want, is the future we get. I do believe we can make it happen.
And
Okay.
to acknowledge what Joan said earlier about fear, that we can't come from fear because that's what the 1% has always held over the rest of the population. They create fear mechanisms and wars and all these things to keep us again deer in the headlights, and then they can get away with it. So we have to get out of the fear and be proactive,
Right.
co-creating.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They've managed to be successful with fear by keeping us ignorant. So that's if we can go and become aware, then we
Exactly.
can come up with ideas on how we change the game, as you say, so that uh, fear is when you don't see a way, you don't see a solution.
Right.
So, and our goal, the whole concept of Dare to Be Great, is we have to make our goals be based on what's needed and not what we think we can do. We have to ignore whether we know how to achieve the goals or even whether we believe they're possible. That when we stretch to find ways to do what we don't know how to do, that's how we grow the most. So
Yeah.
the beginning fear, if you would, the fear of what could be, is that only grows when we don't do anything about it, and that fear sits out there and grows and grows. But if we recognize that a danger, we can plan to avoid that danger. And so that to me is not fear. That is just
Awareness.
healthy
So you're
plan.
talking about awareness, and it's all about higher awareness
Exactly.
all the way through.
Awareness
So
to
we can,
concern to action.
and again, that fear has been, that is so, it's in our genetic code. It's been encoded into us. So we have to break free. So we have to use some of these technologies to get beyond what's in us culturally and genetically, and and be able to create something new. That's where, again, not just teaching the kids, but learning from the kids and
I
learning
think if
from the this new, what they're looking for. Because I think the young people are coming in now very enlightened, and we have to learn from them as much as they have to learn from us. So we have to kind of have
Yep.
this exchange.
But I do agree with what Joan said. I saw some reports out of North Germany that some of the students, with regards to climate change, I think it was, and some things like that, were so demoralized that they gave up. In other words, they did not try to find answers. They just gave up. And
Yeah.
so I think what we have to do is we've got to we've got to realize um, that it's only if we prepare for the dangers that we don't need to be afraid. So that this is why we have to try to push the UN and these new committees maybe give us a shot to say, you know what, you need to have a contingency plan. What are you going to do if this happens? Okay, we don't want to be afraid that it's going to happen. We want to know that, hey, okay, if it happens, we got a good plan, so we don't have to worry about that. And so, but we have to realize that, time is of the essence. There's an expiration date on some stuff, and this is why we've got to encourage the planning. But it's basically all about just going and saying, for the what if, we got a plan, so we don't need to be afraid. And if we have a plan, then those people who would try to make us afraid have nothing to hold over us.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So that's the thing on that. I see here that we are 10 minutes short of our 3 hour mark. I don't know how some of you feel. Last week we went way over, but we had a good discussion. What I'm a little disappointed today. I thought we were going to have a couple of other speakers from Africa and Asia joining us. They had indicated they would, but they apparently were not able to make it. But hopefully, I'll be able to get maybe something from them on a recording that I can send out, because it was really very enlightening to hear the situations that they were describing and the potentials that we have for really bringing up a leapfrog. The Brookings Institute did a major study on the case of education around the world, and they indicated that they felt, looking at the current methods of education, the way we educate using teachers, for example, that it would take over 100 years for most of the developing world to catch up with the developed world in terms of the current education standards. Uh, but that there was a great potential for developing countries to leapfrog the methods of education and catch up in that manner in a
Absolutely.
very short time. So this gentleman who works in Western Africa, his job is he's the advisor to the schools, and he travels around from school to school, looking at what's going on and seeing how to improve the situation. So he's very familiar with the education system that's going on. And if you're not aware, Western Africa, all the countries in Western Africa, or most of them, are part of a association where they share a lot of education resources. Their testing is all the same, and so they have a lot of things on that. So it came out that there was a great potential that we could do something really big there. Hopefully, he'll be able to either send us a video or join us for sure next week, and because I think it's very important to hear from somebody on the ground. Yes, we can do this, 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 and this, and we're ready to move on certain things. Other than that, I think here I think today was useful. Jericho, I apologize here for jumping in as often as I did, but I think we've made some progress on this. I'm going to try to we're working here, and any of you, Jay, if you have an idea, I'm trying to figure out how to take these videos and do a better job of summarizing. I do have the AI companions going, and that gives me a certain type of summary, but they're not necessarily the kind that would help people who missed the meeting be able to really understand what was going on. So any ideas I'm looking for ways to take these 3 hour videos and get these things down to 20 minutes.
Challenge your notebook LM just to do that, to say, here's the video,
Yeah.
and could you please put this into something fun and engaging for our community that can share and build on that every week, do
Well,
and
that's
be able
what
to
that's
centralize it.
yeah, that's basically what I do. And that's basically what the Zoom AI companion is doing. It's
Also,
just
Bill, remember we had discussed, I thought it might be a really good idea because a lot of meetings that we at least have had over the last few months, there's new people that
yes.
join. And what happens is when you are giving, the description of who we are, what we do, our projects, a little bit of history, case points, and these things, it just gets a bit lengthy. And I know that you feel like, you're going on a big monologue. Maybe if we could have at the beginning of a meeting just a short introductory video, it could be animated or anything
Yeah.
like that,
Oh,
because I
that's
think
fun.
that's easier for the notebook LM to do. But I think that it would kind of condense down that information and then open up more conversation. I thought today's meeting was really good and better than some of the ones we've had in past weeks, just due to the encouragement of commentary on the floor and the exchange of our ideas.
Yes.
Yep.
No,
I would love to see that. I
agree.
think that's a great idea. I love
Yeah.
that idea of, and Bill, this could be great for you as kind of the avatar behind this. It's that kind of your legacy of what you've been doing here for so long, and so for years, and now distilling that down so you don't have to do the monologue, because that's why I come in later as well, because I don't need the monologue. So I'll wait. And I figured out now it's about an hour. So that's why I come in around, just so you know, I have a time to come in now, and I come in where the conversation starts, because I don't need to listen for an hour
Yeah.
to listen to you again, because I've already heard it, right?
Actually, we
So
should be able to make those available offline, so we don't have to take the time in the meeting at all.
yeah,
We can have that be
Yes,
something.
maybe when you send out the invitation, there could be a link in the invitation
Yeah.
yeah.
to a short descriptor, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, post it up on YouTube, whatever it may be, but make that link available whenever you send out the invitation. That way
Right.
we're all prepared.
And it can be, and we put it up there on YouTube, so people they don't have to even wait for a meeting to be able to familiarize themselves with the club.
I have a specific ask, from the group here, and for the whole Dare to Be Great community, that in the Rotary community. I'm now, you got me on a path of demonstrating, and the analytics of demonstrating how we have our project of doing the game and our technology infrastructure that we're putting together, but to do it with classrooms all around the world. So I want to find the most challenged classrooms in all over the world, in Africa, in South America, and all over the world. I want to find 10 to 18 classrooms, just like you. You inspired me for that, to really narrow it down so we can create an analytic engine to figure this thing out. And then it'll grow from there. We'll start with that beginning point, and then it becomes what I call this e-co-opetition, that we can have these, and the prizes, and people can be winning, but in this game, everybody wins. So even if you're just a player in those 10 classrooms, they're all going to be part of it. And there are going to be teams within, then everybody's going to win, because we're going to be able to distribute information and tools and different things that people don't have yet and now, and be able to make that available, and then bring in the rewards for the ones that are really excelling
Yeah.
and are really making that big impact, going from here to there in
Keep in
their.
mind, there's a couple of sites here, at least for the U.S., and I would imagine for some other countries as well. But for the U.S., there are sites that give you like tons and tons of details, literally about every class, every school in the country. But here the rub is, here you have to say, okay, when you're looking here for low achieving schools, is based on what? The low achieving schools, for the most part, is based on either the state exams or the federal exams. That distinguishes what do we mean by low achieving. Therefore, when we're looking to say, how do we increase achievement, we're increasing the achievement relative to the current yardstick, to the current measurement. And that is, if the current measurement is to say, okay, how did they score on the NAEP or the state exam? How did that school score relatively? It's about improving the scores on the math test, improving the scores on the reading test, and so forth. So that's when we're looking here right now. That's what we're talking about on improving education. There's 3 levels of improving education. One is improving access. That's the situation in a lot of developing countries. The second is improving the results based on the current measurement. Because if the current measurement is what determines, do you get into college, do you get a job, that's the one that we need to be delivering right now, because that's the one that right now people are willing to invest in and work on. But we do recognize that there's going to be a need to change what does education mean. The character, educating on character, educating on things like creating curiosity, and things like this. So,
Soft skills, the soft skills are
right.
just as important.
Well, the soft skills work actually quite well with the same things. There's no that you can teach how to get along well with others the same way that you teach math, because there's a number of books out there that really will advise people on what these are things you want to watch for on how people are reacting to you and so forth and so on. So there's an awful lot that can be done on soft skills. We teach it in the communication courses in universities.
Right,
There's
right.
just so many places like that. But the things like your almost like your instinct level, where we're talking about the things of character and the things about do you dare? What's your mindset? How do building your mindset? These are things, yeah, we can teach you mechanics, but an awful lot of that is inherent in the person, and that's going to change as we switch over to the idea that you can learn anything, anytime, almost instantaneously. Imagine a world here in 10 years where I can upload quantum physics into your brain in 5 seconds. I can give you a master's degree in 5 seconds. Think of that movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he went into a place and he lay down on a bed, and they implanted a 2-week vacation into his brain, the memories of a
Or Matrix, again, the Matrix, where they're
yeah.
actually programming, right? That's part of
Right.
the whole program
And
is.
and this is coming. There's already significant progress being made in some parts of the world being able to upload memories into people's brains and being able to read people's minds.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
coming.
slippery slope when they do it through
Oh
the
boy,
technology,
it
so we
is.
have to be careful with that.
It is very slippery, but it's from a technical perspective, it's happening. Although, basically we can say, why do we need 8 billion bodies if there's only one brain left in the world? So anyway, that's a subject for a whole nother day. Uh,
That goes into a whole philosophical discussion
Absolutely.
there, and but
But in
uh,
the meantime, here, though, what I was trying to get across is the fact when we look here and say, how do we close the education gaps and things like that, we're talking about on the current yardsticks. When we talk about the inequality gaps, and I mentioned in Bhutan that there's a great inequality. And so when people are talked about their lives from do they have food, do they have shelter, and those things there's a lot of dissatisfaction there when they talk about their family and things like that. There's great happiness. So the issue here on one hand is when we go out there and say, hey, we have to do something about hunger. We don't want to go and make people feel you shouldn't be unhappy because you don't have as much food as your neighbor. But we've got to find ways so that people are not hungry. We have to find ways that it's the Maslow pyramid of
okay.
hierarchy of needs. We have to make sure those bottom level need levels are satisfied for everybody. And as we get into the upper levels, that's where people can switch off and have their special interests and things that give them fulfillment. So
Peace and prosperity for all. I'm going to leave on that note. I have
yes,
to
and
take
well,
off.
we're gonna all leave because it's after 12 o'clock, and I've been trying to promise my wife that I'm gonna keep these meetings to under 3 hours. So unless anybody has any final comments to make, I am going to declare this meeting over. Any final comments, anyone?
I love that idea of tailoring an hour off for your wife's sake and do Essence Bill Graham on stage as an avatar, and it'll make it really engaging and fun. I could see you lighting up and just being this character that, so anyhow, I love that idea. So, um, and
I'll get to that eventually here. I see so many of the others that they don't actually even show up for their shows nowadays. They just have their avatars do it.
as we go along here, I'll help you with that because again, I have some really good technologists and virtual. We have a whole virtual world that is coming that's going to be integrated with this. So there'll be the whole
Actually, here
virtualization.
I'd love to pull you in and get your thoughts on what we're doing for the whole civil society and Rotary to be able to maximize the success of the units in the field. That's where we need to make the difference in the world, but they can't do it locally. We have to have the pull the expertise together so we don't redundantly waste a lot of resources because we just are not sharing the proper knowledge.
Both
Okay.
ways. We have to be top down and bottom up.
Yes, yes.
All
So
right.
with that here, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us throughout all of this. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Okay.
Sounds great. Take care. And
Great.
Joan,
Bye,
reach
Thank
out.
you, everyone.
bye now.
Joan, reach out when you get a chance. Take care. Be well.
Okay.
Take
Bye,
care,
everyone.
everyone.